This fireside chat was recorded live at AI House on January 21st with Jason Thane, CEO of GenUI. In this first section, we focus on the moment every founder eventually hits, when a vibe-coded prototype meets real users. We talk about the early signals that your experiment is becoming a product, what starts breaking first, how user expectations change, and how to tell the difference between a simple bug and a sign that something deeper needs to change. This is the reality check that helps founders recognize when speed turns into risk. So we'll try to keep it a little conversational, but I know that you've been thinking deeply about this. So section one, like big idea is, when the prototype meets the real world, okay, what is like the first signal that a vibe-coded prototype needs to be treated like a real product? Like, how should founders think about that as they're going through their process?
We're really seeing founders today vibe their way all the way to production release. So an MVP candidate or like a rich prototype actually going out and being that experiment that you want to run with your market. You want to get a signal from the market. And so I tend to think that when you're building a prototype, whether you're vibing it or pairing with AI or however you're developing it, you should be thinking of it not as a throwaway, but as a very thin slice of the real thing. You want to think about the long-term life cycle of the product and build for that, but just build a small slice of it. So, at what point do you consider it a product? Well, you consider it a product when you reach a real user who's not like a family member or a friend or, isn't biased to give you feedback, but you collect actual feedback from somebody using it and weighing in. Is it valuable to them? Could it be more valuable if it did something else? And of course, the most important validation you can achieve is, will they give you some of their money in exchange for the value proposition that it provides? So when you reach that, you've achieved the first start of product market fit.
Well, Cade was just telling me that he's got a bunch of friends using his software. He's starting to see people love it. They're starting to see traction. So it's like at that moment where they might still be friends, but maybe strangers are also starting to kind of feel like, hey, this is amazing, and I want to start using it, is when you start to see kind of people should lean in. What do you typically think is like the first thing that breaks on these kinds of prototypes?
Yeah, I think that the real issue is like technical debt. Like with any software product, however it's been developed, you're going to be generating technical debt as you move. And if you move quickly, you generate technical debt quickly. So if you have AI assisting you and accelerating you in developing the product, you're also going to create technical debt that has to be dealt with. And, technical debt is a little bit like credit card debt. Like you have to stay on top of it because there's compounding interest. If you don't pay it down regularly, eventually you're going to go bankrupt. And in this context, that means that you have to kind of like start over and rewrite the app from scratch. This is usually a bad idea. If you're moving fast with vibe coding or application development, you also have to move fast with paying down the technical debt, meaning you should use AI on that side of the equation as well. You should be using AI to create automated tests, to create continuous integration delivery infrastructure. There are a lot of ways that you can fight fire with fire and also use AI to, stay on top of the quality issues. I think that's the main consideration that I have for, vibe coding. It's just like, be aware that as you're moving fast, you're also creating technical debt fast.
But what if you're a founder that doesn't really know how to build test automation? You're going fast, you're trying to figure this out, you're trying to solve business problems, but it's not, but you're not technical enough to do that. How do you handle that? Are you vibe coding solutions with that in mind? Whereas a non-technical co-founder or non-technical.
Yeah, I think you have to be aware that as you're building a product, the product is going to change over time. You're going to add to it. You're going to make it more robust. It's going to do more for more people. And so you need to be able to change it over time without it becoming brittle or falling over. And so that's really where the need for test automation and continuous integration comes in. And if you don't know about these things, you can ask AI to help you figure them out. I think the line between technical and non-technical founder is blurring quite a bit because, and in fact, we have somebody who characterized himself as a non-technical founder I've watched him get really technical just because he's very interested in the vision and has been really engaging with AI to have him understand the things he needs to understand. So, that all of that is a journey. I think now it's possible for people to kind of go, cross that line. That said, it's still very important to have a technical co-founder on your team.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that, like in founding teams and what you think is important?
Yeah. I think that, any startup project that's a technology product, the software product, an AI product, it's very important to have a partnership with somebody who is a technical co-founder. At some point in the journey, there's got to be that perspective represented on the core team.
So would you say that if you are vibe coding something, you're in the early stages, you're trying to test market demand, but you feel like you have something like that, you're at this point now where, okay, it's time now to start thinking about bringing somebody on the team that has more technical knowledge?
Yeah, I think that all founders should be looking for that person if they don't exist on the team. Just like if you didn't have somebody on the team who was good at marketing, you should be looking for the right marketing person. Part of building a company is building the team. You have to spin that plate when you have to spin a lot of other plates. You have to, manage your funding and your product and your technology and your user value proposition. But one of the most important is that you have to be building the team all the time. And that's an important aspect. So if there's not a technical co-founder, one of the most important questions is like, how do you find that person that would share your, vision and passion and, want to represent that part of the company?
So I've talked to a lot of developers that say they get these prototypes and they understand what the intent is, but they basically start over. Is that true? And are you starting to see when people are handing you these vibe coding prototypes, are you able to kind of carry on, or do you have to kind of re-architect so much that you have to start over? That's question one. And two is like when you look at these vibe coded projects from your lens, where you understand the code that's being written, what are the mistakes that people are making? I mean, clearly technical debt has existed before Claude Code, before these computers. And so people created technical debt all over the place. But now we've got computers doing it faster and a lot. And so what are you seeing?
So it all depends. To answer question number one, it depends on the level of technical debt that exists in the prototype. If it's out of control, yes, bankruptcy, rewrite the app. What's interesting about that is whenever you start something over, you do have the original implementation as a reference, but it never ends up the same. It always goes in new directions. Sometimes that's bad, sometimes it's good. It sure is a gamble. So I advise against it. And, only in extreme cases of technical debt, really what you want to do is take that vibe coded prototype or early version and you want to pay down the technical debt, add test automation, add end-to-end test, add a quality plan, and continuous integration infrastructure. And if you do those things, you can pay down the technical debt. You can bring it into, a reasonable situation. Almost never would advise declaring bankruptcy and starting over. Although we have seen that a few times, but it's not a great situation. The second question of what mistake do people make? I'm really from the kind of lean startup school of thought. It's a great book for any founder. If you haven't read The Lean Startup, it came out about 15 years ago, but it's more powerful and important now than ever. And it really says that as you introduce a product, what you're doing is testing a hypothesis. The hypothesis is your bet on if what the product is doing is going to generate user value. And so the most common mistake I see is that people overcomplicate that experiment. What you want is the simplest possible experiment with the least possible features. That book is where the term minimum viable product was coined. And it really is supposed to be minimum, and it really is supposed to be viable. So what's the smallest version of that product you can create that somebody will validate? Whether they'll say, I like it, give you 5 stars, or they'll pay for it. Even if they give you 3 stars and say, it could be better and earn those 5 stars. That's the signal you want. And the reason you want it to be minimum is not just to save your money and keep your resources, your powder dry. It's also because you want that experiment to not have conflicting data. You want to find the signal in the noise. And the simpler that experiment is, the more sure you're going to be that this person liked it. There's going to be other people out there that liked it and that would share that. And then you have a foundation to build on, knowing that your product is alive and connected to the user value proposition.